Hi, my name is Mead King and I am a transgender woman living in the Philippines. I am socially active in the car social culture and I am a car shop owner, a race car driver, a designer, a builder, and just overall love anything with wheels and a motor. In recent weeks, I have been searching YouTube for more automotive content on trans women and I couldn't find many, so I decided to compile a list for myself to share with you guys that you could be different and still succeed in the automotive workspace. We have the most recent news about Ralf Schumacher, the brother of the legendary Michael Schumacher, coming out as gay on Instagram. And on a side note, there's been some success stories with women in motorsports like the F3 and F4 category. People like Bianca Bustamante, Aurelia Nobles, and then Jamie Chadwick are pushing the boundaries for women in motorsports. And before I run down my list, I wanted to say that how we live our life based off our gender identity and our expression is our choice and we're not harming anyone. So I don't understand why some people online are very angry. I want to start with none other than the inspiration that I had to come out in motorsports and still be active as a race driver. None other than Charlie Martin, based in the United Kingdom. She helped me figure that I can still be a participant in motorsports because I was ready to give it all up. And believe it or not, Charlie used to post a lot of YouTube videos and I saw a glimpse of this and she was actively espousing that you could be trans and still participate in motorsports, and that was a huge inspiration for me. And Charlie says she's been racing in the community for about 17 years now, but her passion for motorsports goes back all the way till her childhood. Growing up without any role models in the space has meant that she had to be passionate and visible in the industry, using her platform to inspire and change others in the LGBTQIA space, and one of them is myself. Truly inspired with Charlie, thank you so much. And Charlie came out back in 2012 and she was ready to walk away from motorsports, as she was also convinced that no one would accept her back then. So after a year, she went back into motorsports and it wasn't easy. But with perseverance, she was able to be relieved and she didn't give up in her career. And officially in 2018, she came out and put her old day job behind and put everything into racing. Motorsports is such an amazing community. I love being part of that as much as I love racing. And I was convinced that I wouldn't feel welcome as a trans woman. The fear of losing that sense of belonging made it easier to walk away and at least give myself some space to focus on being me for a while. Like many aspects of my life, I was scared of losing people and not feeling accepted. Initially, people were awkward around me, which made me feel uncomfortable. I think that mainly came down to the lack of awareness as opposed to anything intentionally unkind. Year one wasn't easy, but I had a good support group around me when, with a bit of time and familiarity, people realized that I was the same person and the things just started to get easier. By the second year back in racing, most people were just treating me like normal. I started to feel accepted and never looked back. What is Charlie's message to people who are scared to be themselves in this space? So I think awareness has improved a lot in the last 10 years, and you might be surprised how accepting people can be. I know I was when I started coming out. Sometimes you just need to reach out to one or two people you feel you can trust. It's all about taking those first small steps. It can feel scary, but everyone on this journey starts somewhere. And often things are worse in your head, and go at a pace that works for you. Connect with people with the LGBT community, build a support network, and focus on being you and doing what makes you happy. Well said, Charlie. Amazing. For bragging rights, Charlie has podiumed many times as a trans woman and then 60 plus podiums from the top of her head. If you guys have time to check her social media, she's also looking for sponsors for her motorsports career, and we'll post her Instagram and her social right here. The next person on this list is someone I personally know also, and she is a very talented car mechanic and restorer and is based in Los Angeles, California. So the next woman that I look up to is Debbie Sidera. Debbie is a Catalonian nationality and she lives in the US already, and she is an expert at restoring classic Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and she has won multiple times in the Concours d'Elegance, which means it's the highest rated restoration process when it comes to restoring cars, where I love modifying everything, she loves restoring it down to original. She even paints the dials of the aircon knobs manually. That's how meticulous she is, and if she cannot find the part, she will actually restore it and make it herself. Her involvement in the automotive space as a trans woman is she is a mechanic and currently owning her own automotive shop in the state of Los Angeles, California. So how long has she been out professionally? Late 2015. Personally, it was a slow process of years. So what fears did Debbie have coming out? First, I would like to take note the cultural differences between countries and the good deal of progress that has been made since the past couple of decades, which is true. Personally, I was concerned about losing the friendship trust with close relatives and even family. Professionally, I was advised by several well-established individuals in the automotive world that my decision was not wise. They told her that this was a men's business and that I had no future in it as a woman. Inevitably, these had an impact on her life, and I asked her how the reception has been since she came out in the workspace, and it has been great. Perhaps this sounds very optimistic, but because of those few people that somehow managed to paint a very dark road in front of me, this had an opposite effect on me. Once you jump in the water, you have to learn how to trust yourself. At this point, I was ready to lose everything but not myself. And I showed up to work every day doing the best I can give. I showed my friends and family that I'm the same person but much happier. First, you get all kinds of people's looks, but generally speaking, everyone has been accepting, and most importantly, understanding my decision of being who I really am. So if you guys want to reach Debbie, I'm going to put all her social media accounts right here. So if you ever thought about it, don't keep it to yourself. Do not try to ignore it. Explore, ask, read about it. The longer you wait, the more challenging it seems to become. Create time, create your own space to be you. Do not let anyone or anything influence you. Your path, your rules. Impossible means possible. I love that. Fact. Your profession isn't limited by your gender. Well said, Debbie. Thank you so much for sharing with us. So our next girl is Carol Nunes, who I've actually never met, but we follow each other on social media. Carol is 32 and she's Brazilian, and she lives currently in Brazil. And Carol's involvement in the automotive workspace is she is a race driver and the only LGBT and trans representative in Brazil, facing all adversities alone in addition to having built her own race car. And she has also been a reference for the Brazilian LGBT people who have a passion for motorsports. Carol also set up a company where she manufactures aerodynamic kits for sports and competition cars, and those comprise of mainly splitters and diffusers. So how long has Carol been out? She's been out for almost 10 years. And what fears did she have when coming out in Brazil? So her answer was, Brazil is the country that kills most trans people in the world. So I've always been afraid of the violence I might suffer on the streets. In addition to the fear of suffering prejudice in motorsports and at the automotive events by people. So well done, Carol. It's such a scary time to live in a country that is super violent and has prejudice against trans women, and I hope you stay safe in your space. So how has the reception been for Carol since she's come out in this workspace? She says, much still needs to be changed, but I have been well accepted. In addition to always being in the spotlight by the media due to the diversity I carry, she still has difficulty getting any kind of sponsorship to be able to compete professionally. So I will post Carol's Instagram also right about here, so you guys can give her a follow, give her some love and support. And then a message to unsure folks who are scared to be themselves in this space. Despite the fears and difficulties, we all need to think about ourselves and seek the freedom and happiness of being who we are. And no one will be happy in your place nor suffer your pain. So it's up to you to be happy regardless of what others may say. And if we can get there, then you can too. So thank you, Carol, for the inspiring message. And hopefully, yeah, you stay safe in in Brazil. Next up on our list is Elle Alder. She's 29 from Canada, and her involvement in the automotive space is: I am a classic car collector and automotive journalist. She drives a 1983 Porsche 944, a Lada Niva, and an AMC Eagle wagon. She's an editor with Canada's largest automotive outlet and has been able to drive the cars and work on projects that she could have never imagined. And somehow she gets paid for it along the way. She's led some talks and started accruing journalism awards just in 3 years. Her highlight is driving the very first Porsche ever built. It's a $300 million car, and she drove it on public roads, maxing on the original Lancia Stratos, road tripping and sleeping 2 weeks in a borrowed NSX, and lapping the legendary Ferrari Fiorano test track. So she's been out roughly 3+ years, and her fear in coming out was she knew she wanted a career in auto journalism, but it seemed that there was barely any space in the industry for cis women to be taken seriously on cars, let alone trans women. I buried things for a decade from when I realized transition was an option because of the hostile, exclusionary attitudes I'd hear from men's at meets, and equally from others' silence when their friends would make jokes. How has her reception been since she's come out in her workspace? Positive from the industry, especially since my work has already known to be strong even before coming out. Their hostility from hecklers, especially as public-facing figure working a career that is so many fantasized about. She's very open in the professional space and on social media about her journey, and even posts about very personal details about surgery on Instagram. I recognize I am in an unusually secure position to be able to do so, but leading with openness really seems to have landed well with meaningful folks. So next up on our list is someone I don't know, but I now follow on social media. Her name is Victoria Scott. She's 28 years old and lives in America, and she is American. And she said she is a automotive journalist at motor1.com and have freelanced at the most major American automotive outlets and the course over her career. She also has shot and written an automotive-inspired logbook with exclusive trans femme models called We Deserve This, which was published this month via Carrera Books. So I asked her also how long has she been out. She said since the mid-2020. I think the fears we all have: would I be accepted? Would I still have the same friends? Could I still earn a living? And would I be safe? The political situation in America is very unstable for trans people in certain states, as well as the one of which Texas I was living at that time, which added an extra dimension of concern to the whole situation, because some states and some countries have zero protection for trans women. How has the reception been since she's come out as herself in this space? I was a car enthusiast for years before coming out, and I would say that most people I knew from that era was largely supportive. I still have 90% of the car friends that I had before I came out, and I feel much more genuine around them, which has deepened our friendship a lot. And how can people find her on social media? I'll put it right here. I have a pretty successful career getting to drive insanely cool cars and meeting some really interesting people. None of this would have been possible for me before I came out, and I did not have the faith in myself or the initiative or the comfort to work towards a dream job like this. Part of this existence is difficult, to be sure, but rewards of finally living as yourself without the secret that you fear so much to share always looming over your head, without the disassociation and the distance from your own sense of self, are so great that it is incredibly worth it, and you'll be surprised at whatever you'll be able to achieve. Moving on to Joanna Jumisko. I hope I pronounced that right. She is 43 years old and lives in Sweden, but with Finnish roots. So Joanna is involved in the motorsports community. She builds and competes with her race car in Time Attack in Sweden, and she does everything herself. She's been out since 2020, and she's actually 3 years old. She said there was a lot of fear from being ghosted and left alone by her friends and not being taken seriously. But it was the opposite. A lot of love and respect poured out. And in the car scene, it was the same, but with some people being a bit cautious. It was a bit awkward at times, but when they realized that she's still the same crazy car person as before, but in another packaging, then they let their guard down and started to socialize. Joanna's social media will be over here. So Joanna always tries to support and be a trans role model in the car community. So talk to me, it helps. Just take a leap and it's better on the other side. And she also shares that she got her first ever podium last Saturday, and her first ever win last Sunday. Never before, even before transitioning, I would have had a podium or a win. So I'm down to the last two women who I have asked some questions and who are willing to participate in this vlog. So her name is Alice Mclachlan, and she's from New Zealand, down under, and she has been involved in motorsports as a trans woman doing the IORK, which is the karting series in New Zealand, and has basically entered the KWC World Rental Kart Championship this year. After going last year and breaking a rib in her first race, she's been out for 3 years. She came out when she was 28. So Alice's fears before coming out was mostly just anxiety of how her friends and family would take it. My family were a bit of a mixed bag, but are now trying their best, and her friends by large stuck by her. And she was also worried that she'd never pass as female because of her social anxiety is bad enough without adding the potential hate crimes into the mix. So how has the reception been since she's come out? And it's still been a mixed bag. Her parents took a very long time to come around and are still getting there, but most of the rest of her friends and family have been amazing. And she's always pleasantly surprised at how little it's affected her. At work, Alice is a doctor. Patients and staff alike have been pretty good about it, which has been excellent. Online has similarly been a mixed bag, and on one hand she has an amazing supportive network that she never expected by a silly little blog to attract thousands of followers, but the little community I wound up with has been wonderful. And on the other hand, she has to deal with a lot of chasers who fetishize on her. I'm gonna post her social media here. So her message to unsure folks who are scared to be themselves: I guess I was really worried that I would come out too late at nearly 30 years old. But it turns out that it's never too late. The first steps are really scary as hell, but it only gets easier and better from there. So Alice also shares that she is the New Zealand National Women's title winner, and as well as a couple of wins in the regional championship where her teammate and her are leading. But last on the list is Veronica. She's 24 years old. She's Italian descent and she lives in the US. Veronica is a classic Mercedes technician at the Classic Workshop, and she has accidentally collected a few interesting cars, and she would like to wrench and do automotive events, autocross, media, and all the fun stuff, and she has been out since 2019. So Veronica was first worried about the beginning phase of transition because there are so many social and mental and physical hurdles to cross before you can really spread your wings. She shares that being trans in a car enthusiast community, or at least from my experience of being very public but not upfront with being trans, is honestly a blessing and a curse. She says that she gets a pretty decent amount of negative reception when a video of hers is online and reaches a more broad audience. However, you know whose opinions actually matter quite quickly in that situation. Most people who are cool as hell and are supportive, or that aspect of your identity is inconsequential to them, meaning your gender does not mean anything to them because they look at you for who you are and your work. They see you happy and that's enough, which is true. They talk shop about cars and that's what it's all about. You really have the luxury of knowing who are the good ones and are generally right off the bat. So in case you want to find Ronnie on Instagram, we'll post it right here. And her message to those who are hesitant to be themselves is: take a leap. I promise you won't look back. And if you do, it'll be to notice that the contrast of genuine relationships with the quality of people you formed since putting you first. If you guys know of any other women that we need to feature and share their story, please leave me a comment down in the messages below. But if not, thank you so much to being kind and being generous with your time, learning more that we could be unique, be compassionate, and still support each other in this community. Because at the end of the day, we just love cars, and I love tearing into them, I love modifying them, I love racing them. So on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this content, and I'll see you guys again in the next video. Peace.